One of the most frustrating things to figure out in dating is when to end something, especially if there's no major obvious deal breaker or anything significant that would cause a breakup. Sometimes it's just not a fit, and you need to decide if you want to keep trying or move on. In this episode, we're getting into how to figure out if you should keep dating someone and how to end it, whether you're less than 1 month into dating or a year into your relationship. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm sharing no nonsense advice for navigating modern dating with confidence and ease. Whether you've been dating for a while or you're just getting started, I believe dating can be fun. So, I haven't done an episode about this since I started the podcast 2 years ago, and I wanted to revisit this topic of signs it's over and how to end it. So, you can listen to my original episode if you'd like, where I go in depth about my decision to leave someone I dated for 6 years and almost got engaged to, and that is episode number 3, How to Know It's Time to Break Up. So, before I get to it, I just want to share that this advice that I'm going to share in this episode does not apply to abusive relationships and situations. So, I've gone through a handful of big breakups and I've ended a lot of dating situations. Both sides of a breakup are hard for different reasons, and if you're the person to end it, you have to go through the decision-making process. You know you're probably going to end up hurting the other person, which sucks, and you have to grieve their relationship. Okay, so if you've been broken up with, no matter how quickly the other person seems to move on after the breakup, I can pretty much guarantee that they went through a mourning period and grieving period as well. Just because someone seems to move on quickly, like you see them dating someone right after you, doesn't mean that they're actually over the relationship at all. Trust me, I know as someone who has jumped from long term relationship to long term relationship for years. I'm sure there's still some stuff that I haven't processed. I hope these tips help you as you navigate the next time you feel ambivalent about a relationship or unsure if you should keep dating someone. And as always, you can help me by sharing, following, and rating the show wherever you're listening right now. All right, let's get to it. First, I want to talk about how to know you should end it before you've even really committed, right? This is the early stages. You probably haven't introduced someone to your family yet. You're not using labels yet. You've been dating a few weeks, maybe a little bit over a month. Okay, so here are some signs that it's time to end it. One, you've come across a deal breaker. So, this is going to be some information or an experience that tells you it is not going to work out because there is a difference in core values. There's a difference in something really big and important that where you know that it's just not going to work out long term because of these differences. Totally fair. The second one is you have a strong hunch that they're not looking for the same thing as you, or you know for a fact that they're not. So, you might be seeing signs like they're trying to move fast sexually, right? They're trying to get it going in the bedroom and you're not ready for that, right? Maybe it's like the second, third date and they're asking you for spicy pictures. Maybe they're trying to bring up sex a lot in your conversations or make a move on you and you just don't know them that well and you don't want to. That's a sign that they might not be looking for anything serious right now. Or they will straight up tell you that they are unsure what they want, they're not ready, they're trying to get over their ex, just like some clue that they are just not ready for the relationship and commitment that you are ready for. So that is also a sign that it's time to walk away. The third one is that they're hot and cold or they're kind of slow fading you. These are really common things to happen in early dating. They can happen in later on in the relationship too, after you've committed, but we mostly see this behavior early on, after the initial few dates, and then they start acting in a really confusing way. Like you're not sure if they like you, you're not sure if they're interested. One second they're all about you, the next second they're just not answering your texts for days. And because of this, the momentum is not picking up, right? You can't be in a relationship with someone who acts like this. It is impossible. There needs to be some consistency and predictability. So if they're giving you hot and cold signals, mixed signals, that is a sign it's time to walk away. The fourth one is you never have time to see each other and there is no solution in sight. So this is like, not this doesn't apply to temporary things that may cause you to not see each other, like going on a holiday or it's, Christmas time or there's a work thing, a family thing, like these things that just come up. That's not what I mean by this. I mean, like, when you have tried for weeks and weeks and weeks to see each other and you're not long distance and you just can't get it together. That is a sign to move on because the strain usually isn't worth it. The fifth one is maybe you've just gotten to know them and you're not feeling attracted to them, or you don't like their vibe and can't see your relationship working out. These are all perfectly valid reasons to end it, and you gave it a shot. So, how do you end it with someone that you've dated for a short time? My rule of thumb is that if it's been like, again, ballpark 6 or less dates, a text is fine. And 6 is a random number. Like, there are some cases where a text to me felt appropriate after more than 6 dates because we just didn't get very emotionally deep. And there were cases where a text felt too casual before 6 dates because the connection was really strong. But I think that a text or a phone call is really okay here. In person can work too, but I like a phone call because it does give that personal touch without being overly intense. So, what would you say on the phone or on a text? I have a whole template guide that you can download for free. The link is in the show notes. It has texts for all kinds of situations in early dating. There are like over 30 different text scripts that you can use for inspiration in your situation. So you can go download that for free. But if you're going to do it, a short and sweet text usually does a trick. Like, you're not feeling the connection, you don't think it's a match, you don't feel what you want to feel, whatever, wish you the best, so long. If you're doing it on the phone, you can rip off the band-aid and say, "Hey, I'm glad we've spent some time getting to know each other, but I've learned that I want more something, XYZ, and I don't think that I can get that here, so I think we should stop seeing each other." So the other person might try to negotiate or argue, and who knows honestly how they'll react. That's why I like the phone here, because if you're worried about a strong negative reaction, you're not putting yourself in any physical danger, which again is just something that women have to consider sometimes. I mean, it's the unfortunate truth. People don't usually agree with me when I talk about this, but I don't think you have to say why in this situation. Like, when you've only known someone for less than a month and maybe you've gone on a handful of dates, you don't have to be super specific as to why it's not going to work out. You can if you want, if it feels right to you, but I really think it's okay to be vague and, not feeling a connection. You want something different. You're not sure if you want a relationship, if that's true. These are all fine answers. I think if the reason you're breaking it off is due to a lack of physical attraction, it's better to just not say that, because that's kind of throwing salt in the wound at this point. Like, it's like, I don't think this is going to work out. Also, I just don't think you're attractive. What do you expect them to do with that information? Right? That's not necessarily constructive criticism. Not that this is a place for that, but like, what are they going to do with that information? It's only going to make them feel worse in an already crappy situation. One of the most common reasons that I've ended things with people in this early stage is due to their drinking habits. And I never outright said to these guys, "I'm not interested because you drink too much." And looking back, like, I could see a scenario where I would have said something, but these guys also, like, they never asked why. So don't feel like I had a chance to say it. I'm not really sure how they would have taken it though. And I have been in a few situations where after I rejected someone that I was only went out with a few times, they did ask why. And then no matter what I said and how gently I said it, they always pushed back, defended themselves, or tried to convince me that they can change. So again, this was maybe after like a few dates. It just didn't seem worth it to me, like, to go into a whole explanation. So should you give a reason? Obviously make a judgment call on this one. Do what feels right to you. It depends on the connection and what you talked about on your dates, how much you trust this person to react in a calm and mature way. Again, I don't think that your reason for rejecting them is necessarily relevant to them, because it says more about you and your preferences, your needs, than them. And no one should change things about themselves based on one person's opinion that was shared while rejecting them. It makes no sense to me. Whatever you choose to do, just don't let them negotiate. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to break it off with someone and they talked me into staying, and in the end, it never worked out long term. So stay strong and don't let them convince you. And that is the theme of this episode, because I will be saying that over and over. All right, let's say you've been dating for over 3 months, 3 to 9 months. You're committed. Maybe you're using labels. You've integrated each other into your lives, meaning you've met friends, maybe family, maybe you've gone on a weekend or away or a longer trip. You'd invite this person to be your wedding date. You are a couple, right? You are a couple at this point. So here are some reasons a lot of relationships don't get past that 3, 4, 5 month mark. So the first one is truly just being in different stages of life. This one can also hit way down the line, like years after dating. But sometimes it's pretty obvious after you get to know someone. It's like, you know what? You are in this stage of your life. I'm over here in this stage of my life. and it's just not the right timing for us. And that's something that you might find out after you are in the honeymoon phase or it starts to taper off. The second one is discovering that even though the connection is amazing, you just don't want the same things, right? So other than being in different stages of life, maybe one of you wants to get married, the other one doesn't. One of you wants kids, the other one doesn't. One of you wants to go travel the world and like quit your job and go backpack Europe, the other one doesn't. Like, or it could be on a micro level, like one of you wants to go trail running every weekend at 6 a.m. and the other person is just like, I'm not down for that. And like, you can't figure it out. That's going to start to show up a couple months into the relationship. And if it is a deal breaker for you, it's totally valid to end it. The third one is one person realizes that the spark is kind of gone and the reality of the relationship sets in, or you don't make it through your first actual conflict or fight. This one's tough. Like if you get to a point in your relationship where you're feeling the spark start to fade, or you are realizing what has been your projection or fantasy of this person and now reality is starting to set in, or maybe you've had your first fight and you're like, wow, okay, so this is how they are in conflict. That is a point that I think a lot of people don't get past, but you can get past it, right? That is a point where it's like, okay, can I accept who they are without my projection and idealization of them get in the way? You know, can I just see them as is? Is there enough of a foundation here to move through that or not? Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes you can't accept them for who they are and it's not the right fit and you do move on. Or sometimes you do have that first fight and you realize that it's not good. Like there's no, and it's not promising either. Like the way they fight is not how you want to fight in a relationship. So you realize that you want to move on. And the fourth one is the reason why I might not get past 3 months or more is fear of commitment, right? Because around that 3 month mark, you might starting to get a little more committed, a little more integrated, and you might start talking about the short term to medium term future, like a trip in a couple months or something else, you know, it's coming up. And it's like, oh, this relationship is kind of going somewhere. It's taking its roots here. And that does scare some people. So like if it scares you, that might be a sign that you're not ready to commit or you just don't want to commit to this person, and it's something to pay attention to. So keep that in mind. I'm sure there could be other reasons, but those are the main ones, and they're all valid reasons to end something with someone. And again, you get to decide if you want to push through or not. Okay. Like if you don't feel like pushing through, that is valid. Don't drag it out, right? Just be able to be aware of what you really want to do and make decisions from there. So, like, if you're in a stage of your life where, you know, you want companionship, but you're not sure you're truly ready for a serious relationship, that's okay. It's okay if you figure that out 3 months in. It really does suck to be in that situation, but we need to have compassion for ourselves. Sometimes we just don't know until we're in it. So, here are a couple other signs to pay attention to in like a medium to long term relationship. The first one is you're not feeling emotionally safe with them at all. Okay. If a relationship is giving you more stress than calm, that is something to pay attention to. And look, this sign applies to any point in a relationship, especially if it's a longer one. Like it's one thing to experience moments of stress, but if it's stressful more than it is fun, you need to leave. It's one thing to experience moments of stress, but if your relationship is more stressful than it is fun, you need to address that, and that is a sign that maybe it is not the best relationship for you. Another one is if there are issues that one or both of you just don't want to address. Sweeping things under the rug does not work. So if you know there are issues and you don't even want to figure them out, that is a sign that you should probably not be in that relationship, right? They're not going to go away on their own. That this isn't like I just thought of this time, like when I was little, I used to get splinters and I would ignore them, just hopefully it would go away and I wouldn't want to pull them out. No, it doesn't. It just gets more painful. So, you know, don't leave those splinters. You gotta get out of there. Another one is if there's no attraction. So this is a very common one. And hopefully you have come to that conclusion way before the 3 month mark. But I know some people out there give it longer, right? You're waiting for the attraction to show up and then before you know it, you are 3, 4 months into the relationship and you are not attracted to them at all. And you gave it a shot. So if that is you, it is time to walk away. And the last one I have here is if talking about the future is a struggle. And I don't really mean like talking about marriage at this point or talking about the bigger things that come way down the line, like way after 3 months. I mean, like traveling together, spending holidays together, meeting the family, meeting friends, things that are a little bit more in the near future. If talking about that is a struggle, that's a sign that you might be in the wrong relationship. Relationships need momentum. I do have an episode on this that I'll link in the show notes. It's okay. Again, it's okay if you're not talking big picture stuff, but you do have to have some stuff to look forward to as a couple. And if you're having trouble like really grasping that together, that's a sign that it might not be the best fit. I also just want to point out that just because you may have some of these dynamics present in your relationship, that does not mean it's doomed. Everything is a spectrum, and I think it's worth bringing stuff up to the people you're in a relationship with before deciding to end it. So, if I'm saying anything that's ringing a bell, the first step here is to talk about it with your person if you haven't already. And if you have a few times, well, then maybe another course of action is needed. So, let's talk about how to end it at this point. If you've been dating someone for a while, like at least 3 months, honestly, I recommend breaking up in person. And if you're long distance, okay, maybe you only have FaceTime or whatever, but like if you are local, do it in person. In my experience, I found that going to their place is the best bet so you can easily leave rather than having to kick them out of your place. Doing it in public could be an option, but it's not ideal because this could be an emotional situation. I mean, we've all seen the beginning of Legally Blonde, right? I mean, and wow, I just remembered one time a guy I dated for a few months in college broke up with me in a Starbucks. It was not great. I think I was his first girlfriend and he was younger than me. It was just not a great situation, would not recommend. But let's say you're doing it at their place, which again, I think is the best location for a breakup. Don't beat around the bush, get to it quickly, have the conversation, hug it out, and leave. And yes, at this point, a breakup after a few months would warrant a longer conversation and an explanation of why you want to move on. Like I said earlier, though, please stand your ground and do not let them convince you to stay. Do not let them negotiate. Once you've made up your mind, that is the end. That's how that conversation is going to go. You are going to end the conversation by ending the relationship, not negotiating, not let's see what happens, not being like, oh, okay, you can change. No, it is too late for that at this point. So I want to share my experience here for a second. I only ended one like shorter term relationship in my dating journey. It was 2 months long, but it got serious really quickly, which if I had been listening to this podcast, then I would have known that was a red flag. I had this relationship before, I started this. Anyway, it ended because he was an alcoholic and I did not see the signs early enough. And then one night we went to a party together and the way he was behaving was just an immediate deal breaker for me. So I broke up with him the next day at his place and he tried to convince me to stay by telling me he'd stop drinking so we could be together. And I said that he has to make the choice for himself, not for another person. It was really hard. And in this case, I was also his first girlfriend. And I believe that he has been sober since. So that's great. But I'm glad that I wasn't convinced to stay. There were other reasons we weren't a match, and I knew we moved way too fast. It was hard though. I know he had strong feelings for me, and I took a break from dating after that because it was tough for me too. Okay, let's talk about signs it's over in a longer term relationship. This is so tough. I mean, ending a short relationship or a situationship is hard too, but a long term one is hard for different reasons. And like I mentioned earlier, when we talk about breakups, there's often a lot of focus on the person who got broken up with. I mean, for that person, it's usually kind of a surprise. It's very painful. You've been rejected and all that. But it's painful for the person on the other side too, for so many reasons. And I can speak to that having been on that side many times. I want to get into some signs it's worth strongly considering ending your long-term relationship that's been, at least a year. The first one is you daydream about escaping or being single. And this is such a clear sign that I experienced when I was with my ex. I would dream of my single life. I'd make plans to leave in my head all the time. I'd pull up Zillow and start looking at apartments in Denver. When you find your thoughts drifting to thinking about what it would be like to be alone when you're in a relationship, don't ignore that. That is a sign you might want out. I always thought that this was part of my insecure attachment, but nope, it was a sign I wanted to end it. The next one is that you have really tried everything and nothing's worked. Like you've brought up your issues and you've said what you need and you have discussed this together, or you've either gone to couples therapy or have tried to go to couples therapy and maybe they said no, which was a frustrating dead end. Like, okay, for a second, I just want you guys to listen up. If you are in a relationship and your partner is asking you to go to couples therapy, please go. Go to couples therapy. Otherwise, you will 1,000% lose that person. I know it's scary and hard and uncomfortable and unfamiliar to you, but you have to go if your partner brings it up. Like, that should be a rule. The first second that someone says, hey, we should go to couples therapy, just go. You have more to lose by not going, I think, usually. Maybe you've gone to therapy on your own and it's still not working, or you've tried to rekindle the spark by taking a trip together, or having check ins, or having more date nights, or scheduling sex, or going to a sex store. Whatever it is, like you've done things to try to rekindle that feeling, that love feeling. Or maybe you've tried just so many different ways to reconnect and nothing is working. That is a sign that maybe it's best to leave that relationship. Another sign is you feel like you have one foot out the door. Ambivalence in relationships is really tough. Part of you feels like you could walk away, the other part of you loves them, but love isn't enough, and that's the truth. And having that energy of one foot in, one foot out is really straining, really stressful. So I would take both feet out the door if that is you. And you've already tried to, this is after you already tried to put both feet back in the door. If you can't overcome some big decisions together. So this one could be helped with couples counseling, coaching, or therapy, depending on the situation and both of your willingness to figure it out. But let's say you've done that and you still can't figure out some big decisions together. Sometimes you just can't get that over that hurdle and you have no energy or will to figure it out. And that's when it needs to end, because by not making a decision, the universe will eventually make a decision for you. And then maybe neither of you will be happy. And it's like, what are you doing? What are you building together if you can't make decisions together? And that brings me to, you want different things. Back to what I said, love just isn't enough. Sometimes you need to face the music and realize that you want different things in life. And by being together, you're holding each other both back from happiness. We don't want to be in relationships like that. I mean, of course, compromise is a thing, but like you can't be sacrificing everything just to be in a relationship. Another sign is if that you've lost joy with each other and you have no intention of getting it back. So there's a difference between being aware and realizing that your connection is damaged and that you're not having fun, and being willing to try versus not being willing to try. Sometimes there just is no energy left. There is no steam left. You know, Maybe you've grown apart and there's no desire to grow back towards each other again. And there's just no fire, like to do it, to make changes, to really try. That's a sign that it's time to walk away from that relationship. If there is a big issue you can't seem to get past and you can't accept, infidelity is a big one here. That can break a relationship. Maybe one of you is grappling with a change in your sexual identity. Maybe something happens that just changes the nature of your relationship for the worse and is not what you signed up for and you want to leave. That happens. And finally, the last sign is you just want to see what else is out there. Being single is better than being in a relationship that sucks the life out of you. So if you were in a relationship that is taking away from your life and not adding to it, and you want to see what else is out there, that is a sign it's time to go. Some other signs that I noticed before ending my 6-year relationship was that the relationship was my main source of anxiety. Everything else in my life was great. My friends, my career, my health. I had hobbies, and then the only area of my life that was just really bringing me down was my relationship, and that was a sign. My relationship took away from my life rather than added to it. We were better coworkers than anything else. My ex used to work with me in my company. We weren't having as much sex, and my ex didn't really care when I try and fix it. Like that was just a sign. Like, ugh, like I can't make someone want to care. You just can't. And we stopped hanging out and doing fun things together. I mean, looking back, it's so obvious, but I stayed because I really thought that two people who cared about each other could make it work with enough work. But sometimes all the work in the world won't make the relationship feel right when you're with the wrong person. Okay, so how do you end it when you've been dating for a long time and you are fully committed? If you live together, obviously this is in a way a little easier because you're more likely to, easily find time to talk even if you both have busy schedules or one of you travels, like you're going to see each other at some point. I don't think there is ever a good time of day for this conversation. Don't overthink it. Obviously, Don't do it in the middle of their workday or before a big meeting or presentation or anything where they would need to focus or you would need to focus. I suggest doing it in the evening on a weekend, like when there's time to feel and let the dust settle. I also recommend doing it at home or on a walk, maybe. If you don't live together, I still recommend doing it at their place so you can leave after the conversation is over, like I said earlier. And my favorite way to start this breakup conversation is I have something I want to share, or can I share something that's been on my mind? Don't say we need to talk. Or you could do what I did and just blurt it out. I think we should end this, or I think we should break up. It's going to feel really nerve wracking. So just rip the band aid off and you'll be more articulate once that first initial sentence is out, I promise. And for a longer relationship, you're likely going to have a longer conversation about why it can't work. And hopefully at this point, they are not blindsided because hopefully you have brought up your issues before already and have tried to address them. I don't think you should break up with a long term partner before at least bringing to light what you want to change or what needs to be worked on or addressed. So, yes, expect to have a longer conversation. But like I've said already, please stand your ground. Don't let them negotiate. I swear to God, this will really trap you if you let them convince you that they'll change. This happened to me twice with my ex. Like I brought up breaking up twice before it finally stuck, which led me to staying in that relationship 2 years longer than I should have. And I could do a whole other episode about dealing with the aftermath of a serious relationship because I have a lot to say. So please let me know if you're interested in that. You can DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally or leave a comment below if you're listening on Spotify, or you can email me at datingintentionallypod@gmail.com. I love hearing from you. So no matter what you want to share, I'm here for it. All right, really important to remember here. Wanting to leave a relationship does not make you a bad human being. I think a lot of people avoid pulling the plug on a relationship out of fear of being the bad guy. And yes, it's so painful to be the one who initiates the end of a relationship that you've invested a lot of time, energy, and love into. I just don't think it's worth staying just to save the other person from heartbreak because one, you're also doing a disservice to yourself, and two, the sooner you end it, the sooner you both can find the right relationship. You're not a bad person for realizing that this relationship doesn't serve you anymore and having to do something about that. Whether you've been dating for a month or over a year, you deserve to find someone who can build a relationship with you where you feel safe, heard, valued, loved, and appreciated. So, if you're having doubts, do some soul searching, and I hope this episode helps you recognize when it's time to leave. And I also want to say you might be listening at this point, having doubts about your relationship, and maybe you're realizing that you don't actually want to leave. I'm not here to define what works and what doesn't. It's possible that some of these are present in your relationship and it can still work out. Or maybe you're having some unmet needs that you need to bring up. Your relationship isn't necessarily doomed. It's up for you to decide. And when you're lost, go back to what you need and don't forget to consider what you are doing in this relationship too. How are you affecting this relationship? If you're having doubts before just calling it off, you can also do a check in. You can take the pulse of the relationship. Like, how do they think it's going? Are you on the same page? Talk about it. All right, let me know your thoughts as always. And that's it for the show today. I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting me. I hope you enjoyed this episode and don't forget you're doing great. I love it if you share this episode with someone who is navigating dating and might need a little confidence boost or some tough love. If any of these episodes have helped you in your journey, you can help me by leaving a stunning review on Apple or giving Dating Intentionally 5 stars on Spotify. I'd really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Talia. This has been Dating Intentionally, and I'll see you next time.